Yes, sir. It's another jam-packed episode of your daily source for fantasy hockey news and daily degenerate gambling breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. And it's an old classic, doing a countdown of the top right-wing fantasy heads in the game and taking a look at what's going on with this LA Kings squad because, we got to get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, hockey heads? You're tapped into the latest episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Happy Thursday. Steele and I are here to cover all of the fantasy news that's impacting your squad and taking a look at one of our favorite countdowns, top right wingers in the game. But shout out to all of the everydayers for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Giddy up, my friends. Steele's back with me. We're holding it down. You know what we do on this show. 30 minutes of heat, fantasy takes, fantasy news, and everything that's going on in the NHL, and wrapping the show up with bets. Getting you in and out the door. We know you're busy, people. Speaking of which, Steele, this LA Kings squad, before we get to our countdown of the top right wingers in the game, we're looking at this strictly from a specific angle. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but we'll start with Adrian Kempe and this LA Kings team, because not only have you and I spoken at length about Kings, trade talk, and a team being very on the cusp of doing good things, Adrian Kempe is a player that we've also talked about, and he is very fantasy relevant, and it sounds like not only are fantasy GMs going to have to juggle with him, could potentially be on LTIR. Rob Blake is now going to be a very busy man over the next couple of days here as the deadline draws near, because we know this LA Kings team has got a lot of good pieces going on.
Yeah, they do. And I think this has put a big dent in the LA Kings plans heading into the trade deadline. We've talked at length, you and I, and as well with many guests on our show, about what the LA Kings should do come March 8th. And that was address the goalie situation with Cam Talbot and David Riddick at this point. There's a lot of question marks around those two guys, if they can be the goaltenders that the LA Kings need them to be come the postseason. And obviously that was the area you and I have agreed on of where they need to address heading into the deadline. And now that plan has not gone out the window, but it's sort of moved aside to fill this hole of Adrian Kempe, who's going to be out for a long term now and could potentially maybe miss a few games of the playoffs, depending on how quickly he can get back fully healthy. So this has put a big dent in Rob Blake's plans heading into the trade deadline. For now, I think this is a good opportunity to maybe revisit Pierre-Luc Dubois as he fills in that area on the top line with Anze Kopitar and Quinton Byfield. He's only rostered at 40. He's only rostered at 40% right now on Yahoo. So if he's out there in your league, I think it's definitely a player to revisit and give him a chance over the next few games and see how he does and produces on that top line. But yeah, this is going to be a huge dent for fantasy hockey GMs who have Adrian Kempe. He leads the team with 51 points in 57 games. 51 points in 57 games. So it's going to put a big dent on guys who have Adrian Kempe for the rest of the regular season.
Number one, this LA Kings team is right there knocking on the doorstep once again after turning it around after letting Todd McClellan go. They are only 2 points back of the third spot and 5 points back of the Vegas Golden Knights in second there. They're alive, and they're going to be a playoff team, Steele. Does it mean they slide into a wild card? I don't know, but they are more than good enough. And I've talked at length about this. We're not going to talk about the LA Kings, but Adrian Kempe has 60 goals over the last season and a half. That is not going to be replaced in terms of fantasy makeup, but you're going to have to hit the waiver wire and probably get creative. It might even be one of those situations that you're going day to day, week to week right now, Steele. That's just how good Adrian Kempe has been, because there is no way you're replicating that kind of production by just swapping in a guy. You're going to have to get very creative here, and it's difficult at this time of season. I'm not just throwing that out there as lip service. It's tricky. Tap into Monday's waiver wire bets. Waiver wire episodes will try and help you out. Of course, we're getting to bets later in the episode and our countdown. Just very quickly also, Steele, Adrian Kempe, Victor Arvidsson out as well. We know that there's been issues in the crease. At first, we knew it was just the crease that had to be addressed. Now it might be multiple positions, and other teams in the NHL, other GMs know what's going on, and Rob Blake's been dealt this bad hand. Price is going up, pal. So I don't know if this just is as simple as, oh, now Rob Blake is fielding more calls. I don't think it just is that simple in today's NHL. However, this countdown you and I are looking at, nothing simple about that either, because already in our off-air conversations today, we're going back and forth, us and these countdowns, Steele, but that's okay, because all that really matters is we're looking at this from a fantasy lens and, of course, the effectiveness of players on the ice. But if you can snag even one of these players, lucky to get two, this is how you build a championship fantasy squad. That's a fact. And number two, rankings are just fun to do. They're a little bit subjective at times, but I would say, Steele, if we're looking at all the positions, you could make the conversation about any. Right wing might be the most shallow in terms of talent at an elite level. And I think you're seeing that by even just at our outside looking in list, some of the honorable mentions that I would maybe throw out there. And, even maybe some of the players we have on this list. It's a little bit of a shallower position, in my opinion. I don't know what you think about that. And then hit me with your number 10.
No, it definitely is to the game. So I almost had Tom Wilson on this top 10 list, but I ended up going with Troy Terry at number 10.
Okay.
17 goals, 45 points in 54 games. He's on pace for 65 points, which would be 3 straight seasons with 60-plus points. I like this player's trajectory a lot. I think there's a lot more that he can do to develop his game to be a full star for the Anaheim Ducks and potentially be a star in this league. He needs to put on a little bit more weight, more muscle at times. I think he can be a little bit very passive when he plays the game. And I think there's been a major pressure on Troy Terry. I know Trevor Zegras has been injured all season. I know Jamie Drysdale's now gone, but there's been a ton of pressure on these young, talented Ducks over the last 2 to 3 years to really start producing and become the stars that their GM and their organization wants them to be. But this is a very bad team still. And we're seeing this over their, they're just over the last 2 months, they've gone downhill. At the beginning of the season, they were top in their division. So we know this is going to be a long stretch for this Anaheim Ducks team to come back to be true contenders in the NHL. And a lot of the pressure grows on these players like Troy Terry. But at number 10, he is my number 10, the top 10 for best right wingers. Just to proclaim before we get into it again.
I was just going to say, hit that caveat button, please.
Yeah, the caveat with this top 10 list is we are specifically looking at right wingers alone. We're not doing dual eligibility. So
right wingers eligible on Yahoo.
Yes, right wingers eligible on Yahoo. We're not doing left wingers and right wingers, strictly right wingers alone from Yahoo.
Thank you very much, which is why. And look, Troy Terry, okay, I'm not 100% here for the take only because he's been disappointing this season from a standpoint of I hear for the rest of what you're saying. I like a lot of young pieces in the mix there in Anaheim. Pat Verbeek is a very astute GM that I also really like. And I think it's only a matter of time. I've spoken all about Lucas Dostal. I really like that player. I know he's also got some growing pains going on along with the rest of this Ducks team for sure. Mason McTavish is an absolute stud. I love that kid. He's going to be worth the price of admission very soon. Troy Terry's been disappointing for me, so I guess he would maybe make an honorable mention, although I'm not hating the take. 10, Brock Boeser. And because of this angle, I don't even know if I would have Brock Boeser on my top 10 if I didn't necessarily look at it with this angle, because, look, this season, for sure, most definitely, his first full season in the NHL, definitely, but sandwiched in between is a bunch of average to slightly above average play. I know it's been hindered by off ice. I know it's been hindered by injuries, but I'll just say this about Brock Boeser. He's also been benefited of a really, really good lineup up front in Vancouver over the last now 1.5 to 2 years that they've turned it around. I know the start of last season was ugly, so I'll just throw that out there, but 61 points in 61 games and 34 goals this year. He's definitely earned his way onto this list, and I could understand if you had him even higher because 34 goals are 34 goals, and I think right after Reinhart and Matthews, I believe he's still right there.
Yeah, he is right there on the goal scoring sheet. I think he's at least top 5. I know David Pastrnak's now up there, and Nikita Kucherov's up there as well. So he's definitely top 5. He's still scoring goals. He's had a very big season. I do have him a little bit higher on my list, and I'll get more into detail about why I have him at number 7 on my list. But, we got to get to number 9. We also got to get to break and big time bets at the end of the episode.
Thank you. Yes, we do. This is why I miss Steele holding me down, keeping things tight. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You never want to be frustrated buying tickets for your favorite event, and that's why Steele and I absolutely love Game Time. You got to be checking out the app. Last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, everything you need, and easiest to buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Comedy, theater, any kind of sport. Steele and I, of course, NHL, even check out the UFC. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Nailed it that time, Steele. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make your way over to YouTube. Check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. You can also find it now on Amazon Fire TV. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So make sure you go subscribe to the YouTube channel and check them out on Amazon Fire TV. Continuing the conversation, though, of top 10 right wingers alone, no dual eligibilities from Yahoo, only right wingers at number 9 on my list. I have to put this guy on. No, I'm not saying I have to, but he deserves to be on here for me personally. Matt Zuccarello comes in at number 9 on my list. 11 goals, 50 points in 50 games. He's a power play specialist. Personally, he's one of the best passers in the NHL, in my opinion.
I'm here for that take.
He's got a great hockey IQ. He's a great leader.
For sure.
Great veteran presence for all these young guys in Minnesota. He can really slow down the game when he needs to, create space for himself to see the field, see the ice, and make the smart play, which, again, his bread and butter is passing. He loves to pass the puck. He can hit the tape, 10 out of 10 times. And for me, again, it's surprising to see Matt Zuccarello get better and better as the years go on, especially at age 34, 35, and now 36, than when he was earlier on in his career when he was playing with the New York Rangers. He's putting up some ridiculous stats now as he's more wiser. Again, age is like fine wine here in Minnesota. Matt Zuccarello comes in at number 9 for me.
Steele, I don't even want to chirp that eloquently put take. You know what? Matt Zuccarello is also one of these like ninjas. He just moves in silence. He is a prototypical, you just want him on your team. And I think you and I, look, we didn't play at an elite level of hockey, but we played enough to understand when you see a teammate in the locker room or on the bench, just get it done. This guy's also played injured. I know for a fact. He's gone through multiple ailments and just given her. That's the kind of teammate that you want to run through a brick wall for. And I think it's actually been emulated a lot in the Minnesota Wild's play. They have really overachieved given their roster, I would say, over the last couple of years. Yeah, you've said it yourself. They are an average team, but they have been knocking on the doorstep for a postseason top 3 in that division for multiple years now. And I think it has a lot to do with, we like to give Billy G his flowers and bringing in the roster that he has, but it has to do with guys like Joel Eriksson Ek and Matt Zuccarello, who are just unsung heroes and get it done. We're not going down the Minnesota Wild train because you've already done it. How about Jonathan Marchessault at number 9? Over the last 211 regular season games, Marchessault has 174 points. That's not quite a point per game, but it's not far off. And we know this Vegas club hangs its hat on the defensive end, especially since Cassidy has gone there. And I would say this about Marchessault, much like I just mentioned Kempe and the ability to score 30 or 40 in the NHL, and it doesn't go around a ton. He's tracking towards 40 plus. I think it's probably right on 40, 41. Yep. That makes him this list worthy, and he's moving up the draft board, Steele, in terms of fantasy rounds. Next season, I think he's really improved his stock, and I know a lot of people out there in the fantasy world tend to see players jump in a season. And say he's going to get overdrafted. 66 points in 76 games 2 seasons ago. Last season, 57 points in 76 games, and this season, 51 and 59. I'm just saying this guy's just building his way up, and I could see him go up the draft board next season. He's at number 9 on my list, and I think this Vegas Golden Knights team, though, is actually going to be still one of the best in the business because they're just tough to play against. And a lot of it has to do with guys like Marchessault and another guy on this list.
Yeah, it does. And that's perfect right now because I've got Jonathan Marchessault at number 8 on my list. And they've been one of the
Giddy
most
up.
consistent teams since they've entered the NHL, one of the most consistent players. He's literally Mr. Consistent since the 2016 season. Since 2016, he only misses on average, 1 to 6 games a year, averages 50 to 60 points with a few outliers in both directions. And like you said, first time he's third time he's scored 32 goals or 30 plus goals, but 32 goals this year, 51 points in 59 games. He's got a 16.1 shooting percentage right now, which is a career high for him. Loves to shoot the puck. He's got the physicality for a smaller player, 199 shots, 72 hits. And the thing, again, I love, as a fantasy player, you want to see them succeed on the power play. And, that's obviously a special category to have. But a majority of his production comes 5-on-5, which is so great that you don't have to rely on the man advantage to start producing and pad those stats a little bit. His regular season production transitions flawlessly into the playoffs, especially like we saw over the last couple of years with Vegas. If anything, he actually gets better in the playoffs. So for me,
a lot of those nights do, don't they?
They do get very good when it comes to the postseason. They got to buckle down and get going because, that's when it gets real. But Jonathan Marchessault comes in at number 8 for me.
We're going to buckle down and get real in a hot minute right after the break with big time bets. But I'm loving these takes, Steele. I'm feeling this episode in a big way. By the way, if you're out there feeling the episode as well, smash that subscribe button.
Yes.
Drop us a 5-star review. Any feedback, Steele and I always appreciate it. Feedback on Patty Kane goes like this, Steele. The last year and a half, and he has been banged up. We know this.
Yes, he has.
Only 101 regular season games split between the Rangers, Red Wings, and Blackhawks. So that's number 1. And in 101 games, 87 points. Still getting it done. And the fact that 54 of those games came on a Blackhawks team where he registered a -23, and he still came out at a -22 record, -22 plus minus, tells me that he's still bringing it on the ice in multiple facets. And when you look at what he's done for this Detroit Red Wings club, that's all you need to hear. So for me, I understand that he's not on your list. I get it. It's one of those subjective things. And maybe before this recent surge, you would say it's crazy to have a guy who's at his age and coming off that hip resurfacing. But 30 points in 28 games, 4 game-winning goals, Steele, since joining the Red Wings. He is literally almost not single-handedly, because a lot of players are playing good. He is right there as one of the main reasons, and the energy and confidence is infectious. He goes into Chicago on Chris Chelios' retirement night
I love
and
that.
Totally steals his thunder. Chelios says, "Don't steal my thunder, Kaner," and he goes out and does exactly that. What a stud. He is Showtime. People earn their monikers in hockey, in sports, sometimes. Rarely are they as well earned as Patty Showtime Kane, because he is that, and he's number 8 on my list. Boom, Steele. This is a fire episode.
This is probably where I made a mistake right here. I definitely should have Patrick Kane on this top 10 list for right wingers, but I sort of missed him because he's only played half a season.
It's okay.
But 30 points in 28 games, this is absolutely unreal. He's got his highest shooting percentage, 14.1 shooting percentage since 2016. So he's living it up right now in Detroit. He shoots the puck a ton. 85 shots in 28 games. That's absolutely unreal from Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
He's helping the Detroit Red Wings continue to succeed in this tough Atlantic division. They're holding on to that wild card spot right now. They're very close to the Maple Leafs for the 3rd in the Atlantic. So they're coming. They're buzzing right now. Patrick Kane's a big reason for that. We've got 2 more players, number 7 and number 6, and of course, big time bets for the rest of the episode. But first, this episode is also brought to you by the Sleeper app. It's past the halfway point in the season. The Florida Panthers are rolling right now. They're steamrolling over the competition, looking for that elusive President's Trophy. Regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number 1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey. But it's not just hockey. You can also play NFL, NBA, MLB, CFB on the Sleeper app. And with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash playing daily fantasy hockey contests. Entries can be made in under 2 minutes. All you have to do is pick whether studs like McDavid, Crosby, Makar, Hellebuck, maybe Samsonov as well, if they'll record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100-time bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and location availability. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review, leave a comment on the YouTube channel if you agree or disagree with our top 10 right-winger special for today's episode. Who would you have in? Who would you have out? Let us know in the comments below. Flip, over to you. Number 7 on the list.
Yes, sir. Another Vegas Golden night. And sometimes, Steele, I think this is where these lists can sometimes get tricky because Mark Stone, when he is in your lineup, he is absolutely on this list. But one of those things, and this is interesting again, isn't it, Steele? When you talk about players, and again, certain people out there have different angles on how you factor in injuries. But when I look at Mark Stone, I can't help but look at him and draft him and go, this is an injury risk.
Yeah.
Most definitely. I'm all here for taking the best available player. I'm all here for all kinds of strategies, statistics, research, and whatever have you. When it comes to Mark Stone and his just on-ice quality and being a winner and on ice, he's definitely on this list. He might be higher on this list. Not much because there are absolute studs in the top 5. But he could be up another spot or 2 because not many guys on this list, Steele. And actually, just let me take a quick peek at the rest of my list. I'm not going to mention it. Hold on. Hang with me. There is only one of them actually with 2 of them with a Stanley Cup. And right now, Mark Stone is a winner and is a Stanley Cup winner. So 53 points in 56 games also means he is very fantasy relevant. When he is in there, he's a gamer. He's got a lacerated spleen, Steele. I mentioned this. This guy just somehow happens to get all the most serious injuries out there.
Goes through war, man.
Still comes back a warrior. I talked about what he got done in the postseason last year in 22 games, 24 points, leading the team, like absolute stud. So Mark Stone, for me, he's a warrior. He's a gamer. Speaking about teammates having you run through a brick wall, Mark Stone's right at the top. Mark Stone's got to be on this list for me. Number 7. You could change him in and out. Maybe he's higher. Maybe he's lower. For me, 7 is perfect.
You know what? I guess I'll get right into Mark Stone because I actually have him at number 6, and then I'll mention my the player I have at number 7. But this is great just to talk about him because I agree with everything you just said. He actually reminds me a lot of Max Pacioretty. Both started their career with a Canadian club. Both end up in Vegas. Both have suffered extreme injuries, which has cost them a lot of missed games, a lot of games played. But when they are in the lineup, they are almost a point per game player, just like you said. They do a lot of their work 5-on-5. They work hard. They're passionate when they play. You can see it every single time they're on the ice. They're great veteran leaders for these for the clubs that they're on or have been on. And Mark Stone, for me, comes in at number 6 because, again, of what he does when he is healthy and when he is playing. Because every time even when he's fighting through injuries, he's working his butt off. He's doing everything he can to create success for the Vegas Golden Knights. So he comes in at number 6 for me. At number 7, I have Brock Boeser. This is why I have him a little bit higher than you did on your list. 34 goals, 61 points in 61 games. It's the first time recording 30-plus goals with a chance to potentially get to 40 goals in a season. It's also the first time he hasn't missed a game in a season as well, which has been incredible for Brock Boeser. And I think this is what we've expected from Brock Boeser over the last 4 seasons, honestly. And he might be overachieving just like the Vancouver Canucks as a whole, as a group, they're overachieving this year. But like you said, to your point, he's consistently put up 45 to 55 points, pretty decent average seasons. But at the same time, he's gone through significant injuries. He's had to deal with personal matters that he's had to attend to as well. So I understand sort of the logistics of having him. What did you have him at? Number 10 or number 9?
Number 10.
I understand having him there. And, I'm not going to disagree with it, but he's finally reaching the potential that we've seen from him of what he could be over the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's a fact. I guess I want to see him replicate it, whereas all these other guys have
You
been
want to
doing
see it
it.
again. You want to see it consistent now, especially going into next year.
So there we go. Also, I'm realizing that I butchered this list and only did 9 players, Steele. So whatever. Here we go at number 6, William Nylander. So maybe he's 5 because he's that good. But whatever. Over the last 2 seasons, and that's just it because I've got a little stat here for all the haters out there about Willie Styles. Because not only is he good for the game, because he's a huge star overseas, he's a huge star here, he's a clean athlete, he doesn't say much, and he goes about his business. People chirp these athletes when all they do is go out there and produce. Willie has 71 goals over the last season and a half, Steele. And let me throw out this tidbit for you. People like to chirp these players for their inability to play at the defensive end. All 3 of Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, and William Nylander have all rounded out their games in a very, very big way. William Nylander's takeaway, giveaway ratio is 3-1 in the positive sense. His takeaway numbers are 3-1. That's up there as amongst some of the best in the NHL this year. And now he's getting it done at both ends of the ice. Yeah, he can go very streaky, Steele. That would be my critique about Willie. I want to see him literally. He's got the talent, in my opinion, to be a perennial top 15 scorer. And I know we have Toronto bias on this one, and a lot of people might come out there and hate, but I'd implore them to read into the numbers because he does have that ability, and his skating, his edge work, his shot, all of those are elite. And if he can put it together a little bit more, he's only 27 years old. He's in his prime. This is one of those pieces that the Toronto Maple Leafs need to take that final step, because if he does, we've seen it. This team can be far too much to handle offensively.
Yes, they can be. And I'll definitely get to William Nylander on tomorrow's episode when we talk about the top 5 right wingers on the Yahoo list for us personally. Let's get over to big time bets where the money is made. Some great games going on for Thursday night. I've got 3 picks, 2 from the same game, and then 1 from our favorite team, the Maple Leafs. So I guess I'll start there. I'm going with Austin Matthews anytime goal.
Boom!
Bang!
Yes!
Bang! Let's go, Flip. Austin
got
Matthews,
that one too, baby.
Goal. Look, it was off the score sheet against the Vegas Golden Knights in that 6-2. Didn't record a goal there. Did he record a goal? No. I don't think he did.
No, he did not. Back-to-back games with Austin Matthews. Which is a slump by his standards.
It is a slump by his standards, but I'm going with Austin Matthews against the Arizona Coyotes at home. It's more of a gut feeling for me, but I mean, how can you not when he's got 52 goals in 55 games? So it's absolutely incredible. That's my first pick. Correct. 2 picks from the same game, though. Panthers, Canadiens, puck line. The Panthers have won 9 out of the last 10, and 8 out of those 9 wins have been by 2 or more goals.
Steele, did you say puck line?
Yeah.
Let's go, Steele. I got that too. We're cooking now.
We're cooking right now. Panthers puck line. They've won 8 out of those 9 wins. They've won by 2 or more goals. So you've got to take the Panthers on the puck line against the Montreal Canadiens. I'm also feeling the over 6.5 in this matchup as well. The last 2 have gone under the number, but the 8 prior to that have gone over 7.5. By an absolute crazy number. So I'm also going to take the over 6.5 in this matchup. Panthers puck line and Austin Matthews anytime goal.
And why don't you just hit me with your final pick so we can see if we have all 3 the same, or did you hit me with all 3 and I missed one?
Yeah, Panthers, Canadiens over 6.5.
Oh, you're taking the over. Okay, giddy up.
Panthers puck line.
Okay.
Austin Matthews anytime goal.
So I got Austin Poppy Matthews anytime goal in 13 career regular season games against the Coyotes. 7 goals, 1 assist. I think he's just set to pop off once again against a team. How many have they lost in a row? 12 or 13 the Coyotes have lost in a row. So this isn't exactly rocket science. So. However, the Coyotes have played very tough against the Toronto Maple Leafs team, 6-3-1 in their last 10 games. So I'm not ready to exactly rule out them having a little bit of a revenge game here after getting pumped recently against Toronto. And this is a bit of a letdown spot for the Leafs. However, Matthews, anytime goal, first pick. Panthers, puck line, second pick. You covered it all. 7 of their last 8 victories against Montreal have been by 2 or more goals. So I'm taking the Panthers. 9. Thank you so much, Steele. See, you're all over it, pal. This is why I need you here every single day. By the way, Panthers, puck line, second pick, and my favorite pick of the night, Cale Makar. Anytime assist, 49 assists for Cale Makar this season. And look, the Colorado Avalanche are on the road against the Chicago Blackhawks. And I don't want to just go out there and say best team in Florida puck line, Colorado puck line against Chicago, because, you'll get burned that way and there's not a ton of odds there. So picking your spots on what you like, obviously Colorado makes a ton of sense as well, but 9 career games for Makar against Chicago, 8 points, 4 assists. This kid is an assist machine. Colorado's going to pump Chicago. This isn't rocket science. Cale Makar, anytime assists. That's my lock of the night, Steele. I really, really like all of our picks. Hey, bad time for it to be payday because we're about to get real serious in here.
We are about to. Great picks, great player props, and great podcast. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Again, make sure you go over to YouTube, check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. You can also find it now on Amazon Fire TV. They are here for you 24/7, covering all the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On. So make sure you go check it out on the YouTube channel on Amazon Fire TV. And again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.